Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening to everybody.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. And
Hello, everybody.
I'm not a fan of this idea of losing in translation and gaining in translation. I quite detest this mathematical, analytical way of looking at it. There are 10 things there, and we've lost two and we've gained one. So, net, we are nine. That's not how it works, number one. If at all you're going to talk about gain, it's very simple. How would we have read all this brilliant literature from around the world if there'd been no translations? I don't even need to explore or go deeper into that argument. All, the a very large proportion of the books that most of us have read were not written for the first time in the language in which we have read them. So I don't see what the big deal is. This business about losing anyway, as Dr. Asaduddin also pointed out, talking about the fact that cultures don't translate, and therefore you could, and many people interpret that as a loss. To assume that as a loss, you would have to say that you have to possess something before you lose it. You can't lose something if it's not yours to begin with. When I'm reading a book that was written, let's say, in the language of Azerbaijan or Japan, and for me, speaking as a Bengali, it was written in Malayalam. I'm starting from zero. I own nothing there. I possess nothing. So everything that I get there is my gain, and there is no question of any loss. Those of us who translate from languages in which we have lived, and that's quite opposite to the way it happens in the West, where people translate into their own languages from foreign languages. In our case, we translate between languages where we have lived in various degrees. Because we live in English as well in India, right? And that's the English we translate into. And we translate from a language which perhaps we have lived in even more. So we have this anxiety. There's this translator's anxiety that because we know this language well and because it has a wealth of allusions whenever we read even a word or a phrase, we start getting very anxious about their inability to take all of those allusions and associations into another language for another reader. I will humbly submit that it is a pointless exercise. Why would someone who does not belong to the culture in which a text was written for the first time, how can you expect them to have the same relationship with it as the person who does belong to that culture? If you're reading it in translation, it is understood that there is a distance between your history, your culture, your thinking, and that of the text which is being translated. So why are we so desperate about the fact that we have lost things? We have created an opening, an opportunity for somebody to bring their cultural understanding and their vantage point and their perspective to read and appreciate a text that originates elsewhere in the world. And I will humbly submit again that this is what diversity is about. If I were to understand everything with my own frame of reference, nothing would seem diverse to me. Everything would seem to be originating in my own backyard. And I would never have an appreciation of the fact that things are different in different parts of the world or of even my own country. I want these differences to come through. I want to read things when it is translated, when a text is translated from another language, that I have to go on a journey on. And that does not automatically press buttons to what I know already. That's the whole point. When we were all floored by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and I think that has been a turning point for translations for my generation and many of the generation of translators who are here. We didn't feel that it was a book by somebody who lived all their lives in England. That was the kind of English literature we were familiar with. Now we were reading a literature in the English language, or may I say, in a language that uses English words to create something completely different, something completely new, and which we very clearly knew was not something we were familiar with. And think of the joy and happiness it gave us. And I just say that that's the whole point of translation. So I just don't submit to this loss idea and gain idea at all. It is something new. It is fresh. It is different. And those are the terms on which we enjoy translated literatures.